Hello everyone, Burb here. Today I'd like to talk about end closers in the TAURUS Cup. This is a little bit late because I kept trying to come home. My flight just kept getting canceled. I'm finally home now on home audio, and so it should be a lot higher quality. That combined with side games moving up the champions meeting a few days means we are a bit strapped for time. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently. First of all, you may have noticed this is out of order. I believe end closers have the most streamlined path to victory, so it's the easiest to talk about, and also it's one of the most powerful roles in this CM, so a lot of new players can take this out of the box, build the gold chip, try to get to A finals, and that'll get you started. The second thing is that I'm going to be structuring this video a little bit differently. It may not be as comprehensive, I may miss things because of the shortened amount of time, but I believe I have structured this in a way that will be very, very useful in practicality. Specifically, the card section may not go over every single card and every single skill from those cards, but I will be doing a build example that I believe is even more useful than the card section. So please let me know if you even prefer that, first of all, because that could be roped into the standard videos, but that's the way I'm doing it for this CM due to time constraints. All right. Okay, there we go. That's what I said. There is an overview video that this builds off of. I suggest it. It's in the top right corner right now. However, just as a quick recap, this is the Japanese Derby. It's the second time we've done the TAURUS Cup. It's the 2,400 meter Tokyo trek. I go over a lot of the stuff, a lot of the justifications for these stat requirements, but the gist of it is that we are fighting for the mid-race because this is a final corner map, which means we are fighting for Dober, Ryan, and Marzensky ultimates, which are position-based accelerations. Let's talk about end closers and what they're good at versus what they're bad at. The bad part is that they have the hardest PDM hit. So they are forced to the back of the pack in the early game. There's ways to PDM break. There's ways to gamble PDM break by chaining skills. But at the end of the day, they generally have to build the most amount of mid-race to get back into those 4th, 5th, and 6th positions. And you're going to find if it's a heavy front runner lobby, it's hard to get into those positions. The pro is that recently Mr. CB has been released, which means that your primary mid-raced speed skill that is more powerful than most mid-race speed skills in the game, I believe it probably is the most powerful, honestly, is on a wit card, which makes your deck building super simple and super comfortable. So you can throw Daring Strike on a end closer, and then you can use your late race speed if you do end up getting into position for your accelerations to basically win the game just from that. Medium S is very powerful on end closers because they have very high late race speed ratios. I suggested these mid stats in the video. I have talked with people. I still stand by these minimum stats. You will survive the race with these minimum stats. However, there is something I overlooked, and that is dueling. Dueling will not kill you. However, the additional stamina and guts that you get from adding 100 to 100 is a lot more impactful than I thought, because it just means that when you are dueling, you will not exit the duel early. So basically, the 100 extra stamina and 100 extra guts you get will directly correlate into more late race speed. So it's kind of a no-brainer to try to get. Now, are you dead if you get less than 800 stamina and 600 guts? No, you just have significant late race debuff, and you do have to go and gamble on your wit check for your recovery skill. Whereas if you just get the 800, 600, even if it doesn't proc, you still survive the race at that point. So that is why my recommended stats, I guess I'm moving it up 100 on each side. I did kind of allude to this in the previous video that 100 stamina was very useful, but now I have concrete stuff from talking to people. So I guess I do apologize for that, but it is for a reason that I was not fully aware of myself. So 800 stamina, 600 guts is very, very good. Not 100% required, but is try to get it. It's honestly the most useful thing above minimum stats to grab. For end closers, your primary accelerations are going to be Measure Dober's Moving Past and Beyond, and Marzensky's Red Shift. This means you are trying to get into 5th place or 6th place for Moving Past and Beyond. Red Shift works from 5th or better. Moving Past and Beyond works in 5th or 6th if you are not rushed. You can also do Measure Orion's Let's Pump Some Iron. However, you'll find in 6th position, it's harder to win from that position, and also it's thinner, so it's like 50% of the placements. As an end closer, you're going to want to push up as far as possible, which means I believe the top two should be Dober and Maru, but again, use what you can. Maru is probably the most important ultimate. Unless you are probably running double front, then maybe you can say Dober is. So get these two. These probably should be your two parents, are Marozensky and Measure Dober if you can, and perhaps get Measure Orion as a grandparent, but it is not required. For secondary accelerations, these are ones that are backup accelerations, as I say. The best one to look for is probably just White Nimble Navigator. I do not think you need full No Stopping Me. If you can afford it and get it on the Yukino Bijin Wit card, feel free. But because this is a finer corner map, you will select your lane slightly after the late race. There still is time to get consistent NSM, but it's kind of a 50-50 whether you get blocked on the side for long enough. From the Brink is just a on your left gamble that works in 5th, but it is 66% of the time. You probably are just going to take the chance white from playing the game. Ig Power, Ig Guts can be grabbed from parents, and of course Condor's Fury, because this is a final corner map, kind of works because his overtake should proc rather early, and Meisho Doto alt is if you pass somebody. Both of these are decent. They actually give a surprising number of lengths if you proc it immediately. Particularly Condor's Fury, it works as a pretty decent backup acceleration if you put this on a grandparent from my personal test. None of this is absolutely required, as the entire game plan should be getting into 6th or 5th position. There are some more accelerations. I think at this point, because we are trying to fight for the mid-race so much, you cannot really grab these because they cost so much. Corner Connoisseur is a 1 in 5, Radiant Star is a 1 in 6, and Thunderbolt Step is a 1 in 8. Now, you can grab Steadfast and Unyielding, but if you're being passed as an end closer, something horribly wrong has happened, and you are not going to win that race, in my personal opinion. Both Gold Cities are possible if it decides to proc on time, but keep it real, usually will proc early, so it'll just be a speed skill that is slightly below rate. And Gold City Festival needs 2 seconds of block side continue time on a corner 4 map. So what's going to happen is that you need to somehow get side blocked when everyone is already choosing their lanes. If you've seen these on Miles, you know her ult is quite finicky to begin with. I don't really see the reason to go for this when even like any of these ones are available. You could just put either of these two ultimates and they're going to be more consistent. Notably, Straightaway Spurt does not work. Do not grab Straightaway Spurt on an end closer in this CM. Again, do not grab Straightaway Spurt on an end closer in this CM because the final straight is too late. Okay? Early race acceleration is something to note, and this has been a hot topic recently because of Shrewd Step. As an end closer, what you're going to do is if you combine it with Umastan, sure, it probably will beat the other end closers. What you're sacrificing is that, one, you could just get unlucky and get PDM'd again. But secondly, I don't know how much more it is important to be in front of the end closer positions versus just grabbing more mid-race, because the Daring Strike kind of wants you to be in the back of the pack anyways at the start of the race, and usually that combined with Umastan is usually enough to get you closer to the front half of the pack. So I'm not sure exactly the reason you would want to buy accelerations. Straightaway Excel and Highlander are both just 1 in 3s anyways, so I don't personally think they are very effective or efficient. Groundwork is a maybe if greens have already been taken and you have Umastan. I'm going to grab a drink of water and we'll talk about speed skills. One of the most important skills for end closers is going to be Umastan, and that is because early race PDM breaking is just simply lengths gained 9 times out of 10. If there's a strong front runner, you're unlikely to get PDM'd again from just Umastan, and sometimes you can even get in front of the late Surger pack as well and kidnap from them into the mid race. So you basically are just getting free lengths in the position that has the hardest PDM break. And because this is a 2400 meter track, I've gone over this skill in detail in a separate video. It's quite powerful. Is it 100% required? No, but it will basically, it has the lengths effectiveness because it almost always procs this early of basically a gold skill, and it's usually only about 100 to 120 skill points. So it's very, very efficient. Otherwise, your standard straight skills work very well. They are an RNG 1 in 3 of being an early race PDM breaker, a late race skill, and a mid race skill. End closer straights and medium straights, as well as beeline burst straightaway adept are your straight skills. And then after that, you should really try to go for mid race skills. So mid race skills are more important than your straight skills. Daring Strike is almost a must. I wouldn't say 100% a must because there's a consideration to have we'll talk about later. But Daring Strike is your bread and butter. It's a 0.25 for 6 seconds, which is above rate by far for a mid-race speed skill, considering that other characters are getting a 0.35 for 2.4 seconds in Killer Tunes, a 6-second 0.25 is almost twice as effective, and it's basically the bread and butter of end closes and why they are becoming so powerful in this CM. Other mid-range skills, the It's On Playtime's Over Slipstream combo is very good with Tail Held High usually in the mix of that, as well as Burning Soul Fighting Spirit. Most likely you're just getting White Fighting Spirit. Also works pretty well because usually there'll be somebody you are trying to pass and that usually will proc it. So all these mid-range skills are very good. Daring Strike is probably better than the rest of them. You can see it's 2.24 maximum versus 1.84 on a speed carryover or one length. So that's like the level. It's almost, I mean, it's like 20% better than a basic mid-range speed skill. Okay. Corner skills are, I mean, they look more scary than they actually are. You essentially have a 1 in 4 chance that it's partially eaten by the acceleration zone, but the durations are usually high enough on these corner skills that you get some value in that 1 in 4 chance. And then the other part of it is that you also have a 1 in 4 chance of it just deciding to speed carry over, and that combined with a Maru ult basically means you automatically win the game, assuming someone else didn't hit harder than you. So corner skills are very powerful. I don't know why I put the straight skills next to it, but you just pretend these are corners, medium corners and end closer corners, and they have the same graph as Professor of Curvature. Killer Tunes these are speed skills that are not as great. Killer Tunes is if you are lobby gambling and you believe, like just by running 3 end closers, that your end closer that you want to win is going to be in the front half of the pack. Perhaps it is something like you are running Dominator debuffers, so you know you are pulling the pack backwards by running like end closer Dominator debuffers with no mid race. It still can fail in that point. Elated, I believe, is just the back half. It's a clone of Daring Strike. It just has a lower duration, so it's not as good, but it is on a free-to-play card. You could consider it as a budget Daring Strike option, but the problem is the card really is not the greatest stat output card in the game as far as I've looked at it. So we can consider it with the Air Shakur speed card, I believe. It's just not as good as Daring Strike, okay? At that point, you look at your late race. In your late race, you have Come What May, you have In Body and Mind or Homestretch Haste and All I've Got. They're both good skills. All I've Got is basically a Triumphant Pulse mini, and Homestretch Haste can obviously be clipped by the end of the race. And then if you know what you're doing and you're running the Acupuncturist card, you can get Nothing Ventured if you like, but it can kill your stamina about once every 10% of the time. It'll give you like a minus 0.3 debuff. All the inherits pretty much in the game are late race speed skills. You just pick your poison. There's a couple that are 0.25s. I would look them up personally. Rudolph ult's going to be very powerful. Triumphant Pulse on Oguri Caps can be very powerful. Lights of Vaudeville is very powerful. Those are probably the big 3. And then you get some more finicky ones with like King Halo is a little bit too far back in the pack. Satono Diamond gets a 0.25 if you're close to the leader. And then Teo ult is just, if it just doesn't work sometimes. So I would really stick to Fuji, the Emperor, and Oguri Cap. Now, any 0.15 late race speed skill, if you don't have anything else to buy, is going to be pretty decent anyways as well. So try to grab a couple of these after you've grabbed pretty much all your mid race that is, skill point efficient at that point. Other late race speed, another thing to note, and I haven't really talked about this yet, but green skills are basically late race speed skills that are guaranteed. So if you take a look, and this is going to be a pretty important topic for Narita Top Road, which is a very, very effective card, Firm Course Menace gets about 1.4 lengths at the current stat lines we're doing. I did this, I think, at 1,000 power, 1,000 power, and 1,000 wit. So it's probably closer to about 1.2 lengths if you're max power. Whereas Daring Strike gives you about 1.2 lengths as well. So Firm Course Menace and Daring Strike is pretty much close to the same gold speed skill level. The thing is Firm Course Menace is like 380 skill points, and Daring Strike is only about like 200 and something after you get your discounts. So Firm Course Menace is just a slightly less stat point efficient Daring Strike, but it is very powerful if you're able to get it. Green skills are basically the same as white speed skills, the same way. They give 0.49 rather than like closer to about 0.55. So they're slightly worse, but again, green skills are sort of like 81 skill points rather than 120-ish skill points. So the ones like left-handed and spring runner are very, very effective because they basically are a white speed skill for 81, and they're always late race speed skills. They're never mid-race speed skills. So in my opinion, that is how you compare them. They're stat efficient speed skills if they proc. So you can obviously gamble on the ones there, but sometimes it's just better to take the white speed skills if they are available. Some risky late races. Sturm und Drang, unfortunately, still can just be eaten by the acceleration zone, and it requires you to be in the back half of the pack, I believe. And then Unyielding, which is not what you really want to do when you're trying to go for Mario Ult. That's the problem. So you're trying to get in 5th or better. Sturm und Drang really only works in 5th or worse, so that line where both of those are going to work is not really that big. So Sturm und Drang is not the best skill in the world to take. And Unyielding, of course, if you are being passed as an end closer, something horrible has gone wrong. Here's the cards. So the way I want to do the cards this time, because I'm not going to talk about every single possible card, is I'm going to go through a couple of builds, okay? I'm going to start with the highest level builds. If you are a newer player and you're somewhere in between these ones, you can kind of piece together, and I'll go through it at the end, your sort of borrow path. That is what I'm going for. So if I were building and I had access to all the cards, something I would try for speed, power, wit deck, which is what I'm going to focus on, is, hey, I need Daring Strike on my end closer, which means that I am going to grab Mr. CB Wit out of my pool just for the fact that it has Daring Strike and it has a very good stat output. I'm then going to put Narita Top Road for of course, Menace to get a second skill and the ridiculous amount of speed and power generation that this card has. Those two are both good stat sticks, as well as having 2 skills that I can possibly decide to choose. All right. The third thing is I'm going to grab Kittison Black. Kittison Black has Pro Curve. It is yet another very good mid-race speed skill. With these 3, I already have like 900 skill points that are taken care of. I only probably have about 2,500 between the 3 of them, plus I'm spending 300 on acceleration skills. So I've already spent most of my skill points that I'm having just in having these 3 good cards. I also am going to, if I am able to and I have access to all the cards, I'm going to add a Yaino Mateki to either get It's On or Playtime's Over, plus all the medium and mid-race hints that it gives as well. So we have It's On, we have Professor Curvature, we have Firm Course Menace, and we have Daring Strike. That's 4 ridiculously good gold skills. I may even take PTO if my parents don't give it to me. At this point, I have 2 slots left, and what do I want to do? Well, there's a couple of things I need to do. I need a second wit card for Go Speed Power Wit, and I have some options. I can go from the brink with the Serious Symboli Wit card, but it has 5% race bonus, and I've already sacrificed 10% race bonus by getting skill cards. I could do Fine Motion for the stats, I could do Nice Nature for the 15% race bonus, or I could do No Stopping Me Yukino Bijin. And the problem with these 2 cards is I've already spent basically 10% race bonus on 2 gold skills. I'm going to eventually run out of skill points at this point. So I'm going to choose the 15% race bonus card. Some people may choose Fine Motion. That's perfectly fine if you think you need more wit. Any of these options are, they're decent enough to choose as well if you have it. And then finally, the last one, I need another power card for go 222. I can go Rice Shower if I need a recovery for Swinging Maestro. I could go the Killer Tunes for the El Condor Pasta Power that has very good power output, or I could go Nishino Flower for the 15% race bonus as well. I'm sure there's plenty of other cards that could do the slot. I'm just going to choose the 15% race bonus to hit 60% RB. So I'm basically doing 2 stat bonus cards to compensate for the 2 5%ers that I am running to still hit 60% RB, which is an exceptional about a race bonus. Just a real quick drink of water. So this has been the I have access to every card in the game deck. I'm sure there's something that's a little more efficient than this, but that is sort of my build plan, and we'll go back over the borrow. So some card examples. Number 2 is, hey, what if I own the big 3, right? I have Kittison Black, I have Super Creek, and I have Fine Motion now. Another video, I'll talk about another video, but Stamina cards is not really in the Speed Power Wit deck, but hey, it's still a 10% race bonus card with 20% training effectiveness. So it's a very good card that you can just press the Stamina button every once in a while and lower your Stamina Sparks a bit, and you have very good decks still. So the big 3 is still very powerful. What do? Well, you add whatever cards you have, Shinko Windy and, Nishino Flower Power, some race bonus. You add some race bonus to it while falling in the speed and power slots, and then you're borrowing the Daring Strike. So the Daring Strike is the most critical part of the end closer kit that if you can hit your stats with these 5 cards, you can add it to the Daring Strike. If you can't hit your stats, what you can do is you can instead go and borrow Narita Top Road and just do an Agnes Tachyon or something for the race bonus. And really what this does is saying, hey, you don't really have Daring Strike, unfortunately, which is kind of the whole point of end closers. But Firm Course Menace is decent enough. It trades 100% stat point efficiency for guaranteed lengths and the fact that this card has ridiculous stat generation, okay? That's really the trade-off. On Gold Chip as well, Daring Strike's really nice, but if you're a free-to-play player and you can't hit stats, maybe you borrow NTR because of the stat bonus to get you up to the stats. But ideally, you're borrowing CB for the Daring Strike if you do not own it itself. But CB is a very, very good card. The final example is if you're purely free-to-play, you just go and put what you can. Like, get your race bonus up to 50% using speed cards, power cards, and weight cards with decent enough generation. And then you borrow the card that gives you the most stats. That is why I think NTR is your borrow as a free-to-play player and not CB in this case because, hey, just get there. Get to 50% and get to a place where you have enough speed cards to do so. The other thing you could do is, yes, you could borrow CB Wit and then you could go like Sweep Tosho, and that's perfectly fine. You get a little bit lower stat gen, but you may have trouble hitting the speed stats. So for the borrow hierarchy, sorry, I can barely talk today. If you have a pass pull deck that you can hit your stats consistently on, borrow CB Wit. It gives you Daring Strike. It gives you a competitive advantage. If you do not have a passable deck and you can't hit stats, borrow Narita Top Road because that will just give you so much speed and power that you can go and hit your stats. It's about 100 to 150 skill points less skill point efficient, but it's better than nothing, and it's better than not capping your speed and getting decent power, wit, and stamina. Okay. As for your borrow hierarchy, if I was playing the game and I didn't have X card over X card, it would be, to start, I would borrow Mr. CB Wit, followed by Narita Top Road, followed by Kittison Black, and then followed by Yayano Muteki. At that point, if I have either all 4 of these or I have a different specific need, you could consider some backup accelerations in Yukino Bijin or Serious Symboli Wit. And then if you have specific needs like stamina, if you need stamina, you can use or borrow your Super Creek or a Rice Shower for Swinging Maestro. You could go and start lobby gambling, or you could even do Beeline Burst with Nishino Flower Speed as well. So you have many options with borrows. I think these top 4 are sort of a cut above the rest, and by the time you get these 4, you're sort of in a situation where you can even like borrow a Rico just to get stamina without having to press buttons too. So a lot of things to consider at that point. I think you're doing stat 6. All right, going to talk about the characters. I grouped these up in various different themes, okay? So it may be weird that I choose some characters and don't choose some characters. I did a lot of them, but if I missed your character, I will probably eventually be doing a character video of how I would build every character. So I did do these by theme. The strongest characters in the game for end closers are the ones that have Umastan in terms of ease of use, because you do not have to find Umastan. This means I think the strongest character in terms of ease of use and creating a good build is Gold Chip. Gold Chip is absolutely ridiculous. It is the free-to-play friendly character, and she is free-to-play. 20% stamina bonus is really going to help you with the stamina requirements, especially in a speed power wit deck, because you are running power cards. Anchors Away is basically Daring Strike already in the kit. Doesn't mean that you can't buy Daring Strike. It will also be useful because if you are in 5th place and your Daring Strike is not proccing, you are hitting Maruzensky Ultimate, so you are already fine. Uma stands in the kit, Anchors Away is in the kit. You put as much mid-race as possible. You also have your built-in recovery as well, which means this character just builds itself. It's absolutely ridiculous. Gold Chip will probably be one of the most powerful, like one of the most seen characters in the game because of how available she is, as well as how strong she is. Agnes Digital is an NB character, but is the other character that has Umastan, and it makes her incredibly powerful for multiple reasons. One, medium straightaways is good. Home stretch haste, she has some late race and mid race built in already. Super Stan is in the kit, which is Umastan. You can build just the white or Super Stan. It's really good speed skill. OMG, the final sprint is underrated. Now, Target speed increase is very good. Also, the lane movement. If it decides to proc early, you do get lane movement, which means you are moving faster. It's the same thing as what happens in the early game with DDPP combo. So if it procs early and it gets eaten a little bit, you're still getting a little bit. You could check me on that. I'm not 100% sure that's how it works, but it should hypothetically work that way. If it procs later, you get the full, just ridiculous, 5-second 0.35 ultimate that is OMG the final sprint. Also, some of the best all-around stats in the game. The second thing is you're going to see all the characters that I already did on these. Characters with mid-race ultimates are very powerful in this CM. So along with Gold Chip, Tamamo Cross is quite good because of White Lightning coming through. If you are able to go and be in the correct position, White Lightning is going to make it so that you can possibly speed carry over even. Only problem with this character exactly is because it doesn't really give you that much except for Tail 9. But Tail 9 is a gold speed skill that's not really accessible on anyone else, so you do have a cut above if you're able to get Umastan as well as the rest of your kit, rest of the mid-race on this character. Stamina bonus, power bonus, just like Gold Chip, is very powerful. Measure Bright, I believe 2400, her ultimate can late proc into a speed carryover. You don't necessarily have to overstam her, but the stamina bonus is quite nice in Speed Power Wit. Comes with a bunch of recoveries. I think you just pick a Calm Mind and you don't worry about the other one. I hope that's not a long only skill. But End Closer, Corners, and Kit, you have to put everything on the character. Lovely Spring Breeze is a mid-race speed ultimate, which is just very good on End Closers. People forget that Manhattan Cafe has an ultimate that is basically Daring Strike. So chasing after you, if you're in position, it will proc Daring Strike at the 50% mark or later. You just have to be within 4th through 6th. Her 30% stamina bonus is interesting because you probably just run a Speed Power Wit deck with like almost no stamina sparks and you're just fine. And C medium B is a little tough, but if you can manage getting her end A, it's quite good. I mean, look at this. It's a 0.25 with some upside after 50% of the race for 6 seconds. So this is basically a second Daring Strike that is in 4th through 6th position. So you can do Daring Strike, into Marzensky ult, into victory. Some characters are quite easy due to their stat bonuses or due to the ease of their career aptitudes to build. He, Amazon in particular is pretty easy in her aptitudes because of the A mile and medium. Comes with ECC, comes with End Closer, Corners, Straights, and Corners again apparently. Storm and Drung isn't the greatest, Unyielding isn't the greatest unfortunately, but you can just kind of ignore those skills and just grab the good skills on her, put Umastan on her of course, and then use the 20% power bonus to go and do probably even a speed stamina deck. You knew she would be just fine. Admire Vega is very good because of the final straight ultimate's okay. Comes with Nimble Navigator. Of course, Storm and Drung is a little tough, but she has speed and power bonus, which is very good. 10% speed, 20% power means your career is quite easy and you should be able to win early races quite easily. Mayano Top Gun Wedding, for the first time, I believe, is the better of the two Mayanos to build in recent memory for me. Flowery Maneuver, if you're in the back half of the pack, it sort of works as a pseudo... it's kind of like a backup acceleration. It's just a little weird that you're... Let's see. If you're in 6th, it works. If you're behind that, you're not really hitting your excel. So it shouldn't really proc on time. I'm just thinking this out loud as I'm doing this. The big thing on it, though, that makes her quite easy to build is just the 10% speed, 10% wit, and 10% stamina. That's 30% in stats that you really, really want. She also comes with Swinging Maestro and Kit, which means you can just run stat sticks cards and you don't have to run any card that has a golden recovery. Some characters have No Stopping Me or some sort of backup acceleration. I believe the regular Mayano Top Gun is worse than the Wedding Mayano Top Gun because Flashy Landing is a final straight skill, so it's just speed, and NSM is not necessarily 100% necessary when you're fighting for the mid-race for Dober Marzensky ult. The difference between 0.8 and 0.4 is there, but it's not more than like any other gold speed skill would grab, which a lot of other characters have. Also, the stamina guts growth is a little bit weird, and I think that the 10% speed and 10% wit goes a lot further. Also, Bofa is not as good as Swinging Maestro until they start buffing Bofa. Nice Natured Cheerleader is also a No Stopping Me character, albeit ND. Go Goal requires you to be in the mid pack, which is fine, and it is a final straight skill, which is really nice. Doesn't really give much else. I believe she has good stat bonuses, but I didn't put them here. But otherwise, no stopping me's in the kit. You probably take it. That's probably your way. You put as much mid-race as possible in this character, and you hope you Marzensky ult into no stopping me off of the 5th and 4th place. You might even decide to omit like stuff like Ryan ult, taking the chance. It may not even be necessary because your plan is just to load up as much mid-race as possible. Kawakami Princess is an ND character, but does have no stopping me, just does not give anything else, and only 10% power bonus on relevant stats is a little bit tough. Special week. Don't know why I have her here. Oh yeah, backup acceleration. Yep, shooting star works if you pass. If you're hitting a Marzensky ult, you will shooting star and basically get a bonus 0.1 acceleration. If you don't, it's still a 0.35 target speed skill if it decides to proc late. In the positions where you're winning, you are passing people, which means special week ult will always be good because it is simply a late race towards the front. Right? So you proc 5th place, you proc your Marzensky ult, you pass somebody, you shooting star for a 0.3, and then when you hit max speed, you get the bonus 0.35 target speed. Also, IBAM is, it's a pretty good gold skill as well. 20% stamina bonus, any whip bonus is very good in Track Blazer. El Condor Pasta Fantasy is very interesting in that she does not give you any stat skills whatsoever, but Condor's Fury is a very good 0.4 acceleration ultimate because if you proc any acceleration whatsoever, Marzensky, Dober, anything, it's basically a bonus 0.4 because his overtake is going to proc near instantly. If you're anywhere close to the pack in front of you, it will just decide that you are going faster than them. So there will be one person in front of you that doesn't hit. Condor's Fury will decide that it procs, and then you will have a 0.8 acceleration on time. Augury Christmas, very strong 0.3 lengths, 0.3 lengths, 3 lengths advantage this time, not 5.7. Festive Miracle, you probably add Corner Recovery and After School Stroll as your 2 because there is that downhill for 100% wit check. If you can't get After School Stroll from parents, you can also get Soft Step, and I believe there is a few more. But you are also gambling. Of course, your trigger is 777, and I believe you can do Uma Squared as a backup if you want, but it's not 100% necessary. But generally, you will be in 4th place after you hit Marzensky ult. You still are relying on Marzensky ult on this character. Festive Miracle just happens to be a backup that also can be late race speed if, like Uma Squared, decides to proc late. Also, speed stamina growth is very good on this character, so she's not as oppressive as the previous CM, but still incredibly good. Some final straight bombs is going to give you some late race speed. At this point, you're looking at characters that have a particularly good late race ultimate. You probably want to inherit on other characters. Symboli Rudolph is the one that is well known and is quite powerful. If you pass 3 people on the final corner, her ultimate basically stretches almost the entirety of the final straight. It's very, very powerful. You combine that with a duel, and she is just flying. 20% stamina is quite good, but the guts is a little tough. NC character as well. Behold Thine Emperor's Divine Money. It's just you pass 3 characters. You will be doing that naturally by hitting Marzensky ult, and then comes with Pro Curve in the kit, so you don't necessarily have to use Citizen Black if you do not want to. It's also a Dominator character, but again, you don't really put Dominator characters on. Don't put Dominator on your aces this CM because you want to be in 5th place to hit, right? So you're kind of wasting 300 skill points on things you could do to make sure that they hit 5th place by buying more mid-race. Augury Cap comes with Nimble Navigator, Speed Growth, and Power Growth, is an ND character. However, Triumphant Pulse is a good skill. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Haitian Flash is interesting in that she's kind of, she's kind of comfy with the 20% wit growth. That's kind of her strength. Schwartz doesn't really have anything in particular that it cares about, except you don't want to get rushed. If you're not being rushed, you also hit Dober ult, so you probably want to put Dober ult on her as well. And then in Body and Mind, medium corners is good. This character is just sort of comfy. Sotono Diamond is very sad that it's not a right-handed track, but she comes with medium straightaways, and her ultimate is a final straight bomb as well. You most likely will not be next to the leader, so it'll probably just be a 0.35, but if it ever hits 0.45, you just win. Corner 4 bomb characters struggle due to the fact that the 4th corner is eaten by the acceleration zone. There's 2 of them, I believe. Narita Taishan, unfortunately, because it is overtake condition, it will almost always proc immediately, just a water. It's almost going to proc immediately. This means most of the duration is eaten by the accel zone, if not all of it. I believe there's a little bit that's out of it if you hit like an NSM. She does have 10% speed growth, but honestly, for a character that is part of B&W, it's a little bit frustrating that they made a character whose ultimate basically doesn't work. Also, Sleeping Lion is not really good when you're trying to Uma stand because you should be in the front of the pack distance-wise, not in the back quarter of the pack if your Uma stand has correctly procced. It is a lone wolf character and it has end closer straights, but it's very tough to build this character as I am finding. Narita Bryan has the same problem. It's less egregious as Narita Taishin. I believe she's an NC character. I could be wrong. I forgot to put it up there. But Beeline Burst, IBAM is always ridiculous amounts of late race with the possibility of it being mid race. Lone Wolf character, medium straight. So this character has a lot of mid and late race. It's just her ultimate very likely procs early. It's not is overtake, it is overtake. Speed stamina bonus will help her. But if you're proccing Shadow Break late, you're usually not winning the race. If you're passing somebody early, Shadow Break kind of just gets eaten. So that's the trouble with Narita Bryan and her Inherit as well in this CM. That's why I did not suggest it. One last thing, Cheer Halo, her ultimate doesn't work, so just use base. The reason is final corner, second half, it's already too late if you end up proccing a Marzinski ult or a Dober ult. If you're not proccing either of those on time, you probably are not winning the race, and the acceleration that this ultimate doesn't work for second half, for the final straight, I believe, or whatever it is. Just don't use it. Use the base Cheer Halo if you are an OG player, and I'll give you the build for it. She doesn't give you anything. She really just gives you the 20% power bonus. It's nice and easy to build with speed, wit, and possibly even stamina, or a power card if you like. Her ultimate's a little tough because you have to be, I believe, 4th or worse, and she comes with outer post proficiency, which of course is the best skill in the game. If you don't believe me, spoiler alert for the derby that happened, the winner of the Kentucky Derby, Golden Tempo, was in outer post, and I clipped it off. Jeez, 1 second. Here we go. You can see it's 19, okay? So outer post proficiency won the Kentucky Derby, which means it must be good in the Japanese Derby. That is my logic, at least. So, how do you win as an end closer? You use your Daring Strike and your mid-race to slot into 6th, 5th, or 4th position or better. If you're in 4th position or better, you're an end closer. In 4th position or better, you're hitting Marzinski ult and you're winning the game. If you hit Dober ult, if you're in 5th place, you hit Dober ult and Maru ult, which means you hit a 0.4, which means you have a very good chance of winning. If you're in 6th place, it gets a little bit more tough, but you're probably hitting either Dober, you're probably hitting only Dober, honestly. If you got Ryan, you hit Dober and Ryan for a 0.4. It's just 6th place is usually far enough back where it's really questionable whether you win or not off of that. That's why Dober and Maru is better. And if you ever hit 0.2 plus a backup accel, you can win depending on which position you're in. So your backup accelerations are usually to coincide with some other hit that you do. A lot of this is going to be wit checks, I know, but that's sort of the thought behind the flow path of how end closers win in this Champions meeting, because this is a very long late race. Again, this entire CM is fight for the mid-race. If you see a mid-race skill that is roughly the same skill points as a late-race skill, you probably should take the mid-race skill because it will help you get into 5th position. That is my personal opinion, but 5th position is just such a good skill. There will be lobbies where it will be blocked up due to the number of front runners. That is why you take possibly a singular backup acceleration to still abuse those particular lobbies. So here is your checklist, your minimum stats or recommended stats. Go with whatever you like. Get a gold recovery. It's for safety, but again, it does help for dueling with extending your duels. If you have high enough guts. 950 is for gold recovery list, but again, recovery still just helps in dueling. You may not need the full gold recovery at that point. Grab Redshift and grab Dober. I think those two are the required ones, at least one or the other, but really both is very good for hitting that 0.4. Daring Strike is probably the next most important skill. Get more mid-race skills. Uma Stand's very good. Get your late race skills after that, and then some backup excels after that. So, it goes Redshift, MPast, Daring Strike, mid-race, Uma Stand, Daring Strike and Uma Stand, then mid-race, and then your late race, and then finally some more backup accelerations at that point. More power and weight is always useful. More stamina guts will lead to longer duels. The longer your guts, the more stamina that can be used for the duels. That is my understanding of it. Again, I am still learning about that aspect of this game. So, this has been the End Closer Guide. I got 3 more guides I'm going to try to do as fast as possible. That is the goal for this week, specifically before the work week starts. So hopefully you will see them fairly quickly. I'm going to release them as I can get to them. Okay, so we're kind of strapped for time. I hope this has been useful. I believe end closers are very powerful. That's why I did them first. I don't really know which one I'm going to do next, but I will go and do them as fast as possible. So I hope you've enjoyed. All that's left is for me to thank the members. Memberships are available, and for those I'm appreciative of all of them, but for those in the board tier, I do shout out their names at the end of the overview video, but I've been doing it on all of them. I've also timestamped them to, if you ran out before this video released, I kept you in because this video was late. So for the board tier, thank you especially to Captain Kiku ZX, Mr. Merritt, Crest of Gautier, Immobility Sorcerer, Ogre Capisa Burger, Lucifel, Monosataru, Snow Crystals, Hugh, Thundercluck Not Real, Sage, and Peter Van San. Again, thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully I'll get the next one out pretty quickly. Take care. Burb out.